Can you walk us through how many emails you had to send and how many meetings you had to have and other hustles to get to your first check in the fund and how big that first check was?
Yeah. So approximately 3 years of no's, so nothing. At least half of that, if not more, without a permanent residence, and in a lot of cases, just really not knowing where I was going to sleep that night, and a lot of cases not having like one meal understood. Like actually, I'll break for a second to tell you that I went to a course here at Stanford in this same hallway, like around the corner, for 2 weeks. That kind of was where I met my first LP, Susan, and it was a lot of
Susan Kimberlin.
Susan Kimberlin. I say her name every time. It was a lot of millionaires in this course because it was like a how do you spend your money better sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And I was the only one that I know of who was like broke. And so no one knew this in the class, but I would like figure out how to put together like $1.19 or $1.09, whatever the tax is, so I could go to Taco Bell down the street when I got back to where I was staying and have like my dinner. And that was 2015. So that was like just a few months before I got my first check from Susan. So it had been months and years of that. And I don't know the exact number, but when I was on, I was featured on Gimlet's startup podcast series last year, and they recorded me for months before it came out. And they had me just go back and do all this crazy vetting diligence on me, for me, to say, did you really do that thing that you said you did 4 months ago on tape? So I'd have to go find the proof, the evidence in an email, which thankfully I still had because I have these emails. So I was able to look and like just in searching for a word or a phrase, I was like, oh my God. Like I talk about how much outreach I did, but my goodness, seeing them just back to back. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of emails, but maybe more than that, maybe in the thousands over those 3 years.
And how many no's do you think before your first yes?
Hundreds.
And how big was that first yes after 3 years and hundreds of no's? And
approximately $50,000.
$50,000.
In a world which was amazing, and I will always be grateful to Susan for that because no one was doing anything. But this is in a world where I had to compete with people who had millions out the gate.
And can you walk me through what that's like I can't fathom this, and I want to just make this really clear for people. So you're going to these meetings, you're pitching these people, you're going to the Stanford class to hobnob with the millionaires, and you don't know.
It's hobnobbing. That's a good word for it.
And then where are you? Where are you waking up? Where are you going to sleep? How are you dealing with the bifurcation of that world? Are you pretending you're one thing and then, or?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so can you walk us through just what it's like,
okay,
what that feels like?
It was different at different times. So I started out in Pearland, Texas, part of Houston. Mm-hmm. And Pearland, when I first started learning about VC and the disparities in capital between white men and everyone else getting capital from venture capital, I was in Pearland. I was in an apartment with my mom. I had my bedroom, I had a blow-up bed, and I had a whiteboard that I was teaching myself about cap tables on and reading Brad Feld books. And we got kicked out of that because we couldn't pay the rent. So then we moved into a Comfort Inn, and we shared a room, and every night or every morning we'd figure out how to pay for the next night. And sometimes we'd go down and talk to the owner, and he would see us coming, and he'd be like, and we'd be like, hey, man, you looking good, man. How you doing? Yeah. Can we get like a week? Just, and we just ended up, for like 2 years, it was the address to my driver's license because we lived there and we just made our way. And my mom would go out and get a gig, and I would she's in her 60s at that time. Mm-hmm. I would go out and get a gig. I was trying to get a car so I could work for Uber because it was like the early years of that. Couldn't get a car, all of that. And then couldn't afford that anymore. Moved to Pflugerville in Austin, north of Austin, because I wanted to be closer to startups. If I couldn't be in Silicon Valley, I wanted to at least be closer in Texas to startup world at that time, and it wasn't at that time so prevalent in Houston. And got kind of a lifeline in the form of a small personal loan from Sam Altman, which is a whole nother story. And that helped us have an Airbnb for a few months. And because he understood. But while I was at the Airbnb is when I got the word that I was going to be able to come here for this 500 startups program that you all have. And I didn't have any money, and it cost a lot of money. Even though I was getting a scholarship, it cost a lot of money. So made my way here, and I had about 10 days worth of Airbnb. And in fact, there's a guy here who had his own company that was venture funded, and I was staying at his place in East Palo Alto, and I couldn't pay him at the end of it. And he let me, there's these people that I've kind of gone back to and thanked because he let me stay for a few days, but I was in these classes. So to answer your question about what was I portraying myself as, I was never ashamed of any of this. I was actually proud that I was surviving, but I wasn't going to put my whole sad sack story to anybody. That wasn't important. I tried that a couple of times, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not really what this is about. Because what this is about is getting more funding to underrepresented founders. It's about me seeing a great deal flow. It's about a fund that needs to exist.